These are the diseases that kill more people than wars, natural disasters, and violent crime combined. And most of them aren't the ones you think. Every single year, tens of millions of human beings are killed not by bullets or earthquakes, but by microscopic organisms, rogue cells, and clogged arteries. Some of these diseases have been with us since the Bronze Age. Others emerged within living memory, and a few of them kill every single person they infect, with a 100% fatality rate. This is every deadly disease you need to understand, from the silent killers hiding in your bloodstream right now, to the ancient plagues that wiped out half of civilization. Let's start with the diseases that actually kill the most people, because they're probably not the ones grabbing headlines. The number one killer on Earth isn't Ebola. It's not some exotic tropical virus. It's ischemic heart disease. Your heart, right now, is pumping blood through coronary arteries. When those arteries get clogged with fatty deposits, blood can't reach your heart muscle. Tissue dies, and so do you. In 2021, ischemic heart disease killed 9.1 million people worldwide, accounting for 13% of every death on the planet. And here's the troubling part. Since the year 2000, deaths from this disease have actually increased by 2.7 million. We're going backward. Cardiovascular diseases as a whole, which include heart disease, stroke, and related conditions, killed 20.5 million people in 2021. Roughly 80% of those deaths happened in low and middle-income countries, places where access to treatment, medication, and even basic monitoring is limited. Raised blood pressure alone contributed to 10.8 million deaths in 2019. That's a single risk factor killing more people than most diseases on this list. Stroke is the third leading cause of death globally, responsible for about 10% of all deaths. Think about that. 1 in 10 people who die on this planet die because blood flow to their brain was interrupted. Either a clot blocks an artery or a vessel bursts, and either way, brain cells start dying within minutes. Now here's where things get complicated, because cancer isn't a single disease. It's hundreds of diseases wearing the same name. But if you group them together, cancer killed an estimated 9.7 million people in 2022, and 20 million new cases were diagnosed that same year. Approximately 1 in 5 human beings will develop cancer in their lifetime. 1 in 9 men and 1 in 12 women will die from it. Lung cancer is the deadliest form, claiming 1.8 million lives in 2022 alone, which works out to 1 in 5 of all cancer deaths from a single type. The projections are staggering. By 2050, annual cancer cases are expected to reach 35 million. But here's an important nuance. When you adjust for age and population growth, the rates aren't actually increasing. What's increasing is the number of older people alive on Earth. Cancer is largely a disease of aging, and as more humans live longer, more humans get cancer. That said, 42% of cancer deaths in 2023 were attributable to modifiable risk factors, things we can actually change. Tobacco use alone contributed to 21% of global cancer deaths. That's nearly 2 million preventable deaths every single year from one habit. As populations age, another killer is climbing the ranks. Alzheimer's disease and other forms of dementia reached the 7th leading cause of death in 2025. It's a progressive neurological disorder that causes irreversible decline in memory and cognitive function. There's no cure, there's barely even a treatment that works, and as the global population continues to age, this number will only grow. Now, let's shift from the slow, quiet killers to the infectious diseases, the ones caused by organisms that invade your body with a single purpose: to replicate. Tuberculosis is the world's deadliest infectious disease. Let that sink in. Not Ebola, not HIV. Tuberculosis. Each year, TB kills about 1.3 million people, more than HIV and malaria combined. It kills someone every 20 seconds. And in 2023, there was a record number of new diagnoses. 8.2 million, the highest, since the WHO started tracking it 30 years ago. More than 1/4 of all living humans have already been infected with Mycobacterium tuberculosis. 1 in 4 people walking around right now carry this bacterium, and most of them don't know it, because TB has a remarkable ability to lie dormant. The bacteria can hide in your body for decades, 80 years in some cases, waiting for your immune system to weaken. Any compromise, whether from aging, from HIV, or from malnutrition, and the bacteria wake up. When paleogeneticists examined ancient Egyptian mummies, they found something remarkable. The human DNA inside had degraded beyond recognition, but the tuberculosis DNA was perfectly preserved. TB has proved, in a very real sense, immortal. It has been killing us longer than recorded history, and it's still killing us now. In Colorado, health officials recorded a 32% jump in cases from 2024 to 2025. As one doctor put it, TB investigations require a lot of detective work. And despite all of this, TB rarely makes headlines. Many people in wealthy countries think of it as a disease of the past. It isn't. Then there's HIV and AIDS, which have killed 43.2 million people since the epidemic began. When AIDS was first identified in 1981, it was a death sentence. By 2004, the epidemic reached its peak, with 2.1 million people dying from AIDS-related illnesses in a single year. Today, 40.9 million people are living with HIV worldwide. And in 2025, someone still dies of HIV-related causes every single minute. But there is genuine progress here. AIDS-related deaths have dropped by 74% since that 2004 peak. The global HIV response has saved an estimated 26.9 million lives. New drugs like lenacapavir, a long-acting medicine given as a twice-yearly injection, could be transformative. Within the next few years, we may have annual injections and monthly pills that prevent HIV infection entirely. That progress, though, is fragile. In early 2025, the sudden withdrawal of the single biggest contributor to the global HIV response disrupted treatment and prevention programs worldwide. UNAIDS modeling shows that if this funding permanently disappears, there could be an additional 6 million HIV infections and 4 million AIDS-related deaths by 2029. That's the thing about fighting disease. You don't just need the science. You need the money. Malaria is another disease that primarily kills in the developing world. In 2024, there were an estimated 282 million cases and 610,000 deaths across 80 countries. 95% of those cases and deaths occurred in Africa. And here's the statistic that should keep you up at night. 75% of malaria deaths, more than 434,000 people, were children under the age of 5. A child dies roughly every minute from malaria, a disease that is both preventable and treatable. Since the year 2000, malaria programs have prevented an estimated 2.3 billion cases and saved at least 14 million lives. 2 WHO-approved malaria vaccines are now being rolled out in 24 countries. 14 countries have been certified malaria-free since 2017, including Georgia, Suriname, and Timor-Leste in 2025. But there's a dark cloud on the horizon. Anti-malarial drug resistance is growing, and resistance to artemisinin, our frontline drug, has been confirmed or suspected in at least 8 African countries. As Dr. Martin Fitchett, CEO of Medicines for Malaria Venture, warned, malaria is still a preventable and treatable disease, but that may not last forever. Global malaria funding in 2024 reached $3.9 billion, only 42% of the $9.3 billion target. We know how to beat this disease. We're just not paying for it. If you are enjoying this video so far and have learned something you didn't know, please make sure to subscribe. It's free, takes 1 click, and would really help me out. Now let's talk about the diseases that don't kill the most people in total, but kill the highest percentage of people they infect. because this is where things get truly terrifying. Rabies carries a fatality rate of effectively 100% once symptoms appear. If you develop symptoms of rabies, you will almost certainly die. There's no cure, there's no treatment at that point, and the virus travels through your nervous system to your brain, where the damage becomes irreversible. Nearly 70,000 people die from rabies each year globally, with 40% being children under 15. But here's the remarkable flip side. Rabies is 100% preventable. Receive post-exposure treatment before symptoms appear, and you survive. In the United States, before 1960, several hundred Americans died from rabies annually, mostly from dog bites. Today, only 1 to 3 cases occur per year, and in 2019 and 2020, there were 0. This transformation is one of public health's greatest success stories, built on the foundation laid by Louis Pasteur, who developed the first rabies vaccine and is honored every September 28th on World Rabies Day. Prion diseases also carry a 100% fatality rate. These aren't caused by bacteria or viruses. They're caused by misfolded proteins, called prions, that trigger a chain reaction in your brain. Normal proteins misfold, which causes more proteins to misfold until your brain is essentially destroyed from the inside. There's no treatment, no vaccine, nothing. The brain-eating amoeba, which causes amoebic meningitis, is another near-perfect killer. It enters through the nose, usually when someone is submerged in contaminated freshwater, and travels directly to the brain. It's extraordinarily rare, but nearly always fatal. Ebola is perhaps the most feared disease on this list, and for good reason. The Zaire strain has shown fatality rates as high as 90% in some outbreaks, with an average around 66%. The West African outbreak of 2014 to 2016 was the largest in history, and the virus continues to resurface. As recently as 2025 and 2026, outbreaks have occurred in the Democratic Republic of Congo and Uganda. The most recent involved the Bundibugyo virus, which is of particular concern because no approved vaccines or treatments exist for that specific strain. MERS, Middle East Respiratory Syndrome, kills about 35% of people diagnosed with it. That's an extraordinarily high fatality rate, yet it has killed only 858 people as of 2021 because it simply doesn't spread easily between humans. This is the paradox of disease. The deadliest viruses are often the worst at spreading because they kill their hosts too quickly to transmit efficiently. COVID-19 sits on the opposite end of that spectrum. It kills roughly 1% of those infected, a relatively low fatality rate. But because it spread so effectively, it was directly responsible for 8.8 million deaths in 2021 alone. Age is a massive factor. The virus killed about 0.0023% of infected children under 7, compared to roughly 20% of infected people over 90. Same virus, vastly different outcomes depending on who it infects. Now let's go back in time, because the diseases of the past make everything we've discussed look almost manageable. The Black Death, which swept through Europe from 1346 to 1353, killed up to 50 million people, roughly half of Europe's entire population. The plague bacterium, Yersinia pestis, was identified by French biologist Alexandre Yersin at the end of the 19th century, but the pathogen itself is ancient, found in archaeological remains dating back nearly 4,000 years to the late Bronze Age. The first major plague pandemic was the Plague of Justinian, which struck the Eastern Roman Empire in 541 AD and killed an estimated 25 to 50 million people over 2 centuries of recurrence. The Black Death itself may have been weaponized during the siege of Kaffa in Crimea in 1347, when the Golden Horde army reportedly catapulted plague-infected corpses over city walls. Centuries later, during the Second Sino-Japanese War, the Imperial Japanese Army bombed Chinese cities with fleas carrying bubonic plague. Disease has always been both a consequence of war and a weapon of it. The third plague pandemic started in China in 1860 and didn't officially end until 1959, killing roughly 10 million people. And plague still exists today. Within the United States, an average of 7 human plague cases appear each year, mostly in California and the Southwest. Globally, there are still 1,000 to 3,000 cases annually. In 1995, a drug-resistant strain was found in Madagascar, raising fears that this ancient killer could become a modern threat once more. Smallpox deserves special mention. Some rare variants were nearly 100% fatal, and it killed more people throughout history than any other infectious disease. But smallpox holds a unique distinction. It is the only human disease to have been completely eradicated from the planet. It proves that with enough political will, scientific coordination, and funding, we can eliminate a disease entirely. And that's really the takeaway from all of this. When you look at the full picture of deadly disease, a pattern emerges. The biggest killers aren't exotic or dramatic. They're heart disease and stroke and cancer, fueled by blood pressure and tobacco and aging. The most feared diseases, the ones with terrifying fatality rates like rabies and Ebola and prions, kill far fewer people because they're either rare, hard to spread, or preventable with existing tools. And the infectious diseases that fall somewhere in between, tuberculosis and HIV and malaria, kill millions not because we lack the knowledge to stop them, but because we lack the will and the funding to do so. Tuberculosis kills someone every 20 seconds, and most people in wealthy countries couldn't tell you what it is. Malaria kills a child every minute, and we're funding the response at less than half the target. HIV deaths have dropped by 74%, but that progress could reverse overnight if the money disappears. The deadliest diseases aren't mysteries. We know what they are. We know how they kill. In many cases, we know exactly how to prevent them. The question has never really been about science. The question is whether we care enough to act on what we already know.